Welcome, everyone. I am so incredibly excited to have you here today. In this explainer, we're going to unpack one of the most beloved and, frankly, impactful memoirs of all time, Mitch Albom's Tuesdays with Morrie. But look, we aren't just summarizing a book here. We are distilling some seriously profound, life-altering lessons from a brilliant college professor who essentially chose to turn his final days into an extraordinary masterclass on the meaning of life itself. If you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by the relentless, crazy pace of modern life, you are in exactly the right place.
Now, Morrie once made this really striking observation. He said, "So many people walk around with a meaningless life. They seem half asleep, even when they're busy doing things they think are important." Let me ask you, do you ever feel like that? Do you ever feel like you're kind of just sleepwalking through your own ambitions, ticking off all the boxes, but still feeling completely empty? Well, that is exactly where successful sports journalist Mitch Albom found himself, right up until a chance television broadcast reconnected him with his old college professor, Morrie Schwartz, and basically snapped him wide awake. Okay, let's dive into this. Think of this as the syllabus for Morrie's final class. We've got 1. The final class begins. 2. Rejecting the culture. 3. Experiencing your emotions. 4. Love, marriage, and family. And 5. Learning how to die. So let's rewind just a bit to trace how this whole thing unfolded. Mitch and Morrie actually had a super close bond back in college. This culminated at Mitch's graduation in 1979, where Mitch made a firm promise to keep in touch. But he didn't. Fast forward to 1994, and Morrie's diagnosed with a terminal illness. It actually wasn't until the summer of 1995 that Mitch, who was feeling totally unfulfilled despite all his outward career success, happened to see his old mentor on television and finally went to visit him. And that reunion? It blossomed into 14 successive Tuesdays, literally a 14-week final class that lasted right up until Morrie's death, or as they called it, his graduation.
Section 1. The final class begins. Reconnecting with the coach.
Morrie's devastating diagnosis was ALS. It's a brutal, terminal neurological condition. Now, for a man who absolutely loved to dance and move, this was incredibly cruel. Morrie described it perfectly, though. He said it's like a lit candle that just melts your nerves and leaves your body a pile of wax. But here's the absolutely crucial takeaway. Instead of withering away in shame or hiding in secrecy, Morrie chose to make his final, physically degrading months a vibrant, very public lesson on how to truly live.
And so, this highly unconventional class was born. The curriculum was simple, really. There was only one student, Mitch Albom. There were no grades, and the subject? The meaning of life. You see, Mitch finally realized he'd been chasing all the wrong things. He was working himself to the bone as a stressed-out sports writer, completely swallowed up by a media culture that championed gossip and status over substance. But when a union strike unexpectedly put him out of work, it cleared his schedule. He began visiting Morrie every single Tuesday for this incredibly unique curriculum.
Section 2. Rejecting the culture. Don't buy what doesn't work.
We all know society bombards us with a very specific set of values, right? We're told we must acquire more money, more power, more property, and we have to desperately cling to eternal youth. It's like a fast-paced, money-driven brainwashing. But contrast that with Morrie's counterculture. His values were rooted in emotional richness, love, tenderness, community, and actually viewing aging not as some terrible decay, but as vital, necessary growth. Morrie observed that the average person is so fogged up by all this commercialism that they literally have no perspective on what actually matters. Take a look at this quote, because this was Morrie's incredibly empowering rule. The culture we have does not make people feel good about themselves, and you have to be strong enough to say, if the culture doesn't work, don't buy it. I just love that. Morrie taught Mitch, and really, by extension, all of us, that we absolutely do not have to accept the rules handed down to us by society. If the culture makes you feel inadequate or stressed out, you have the power to just reject it. You can create your own localized culture of purpose, love, and meaning. Section 3. Experiencing your emotions. Dive in, then detach. Let's move to and see how this builds, especially when dealing with the heavy stuff. Morrie experienced these terrifying coughing fits where he literally couldn't breathe. It was his greatest fear. But instead of panicking, he followed a brilliant 3-step method. Step 1, dive into the emotion fully and completely. Step 2, recognize and acknowledge it. Literally say to yourself, this is fear. And step 3, detach from the emotion and let it go. By allowing himself to dive in all the way, letting it wash completely over him,
He experienced the fear entirely. And ironically, that's exactly what allowed him to step away from it and not let it control him.
And look, Maury wasn't pretending to be some emotionless robot here. He admitted, I give myself a good cry when I need it. A little each morning, a few tears, and that's all. He absolutely allowed himself to mourn his decaying body, his loss of independence, and, his impending death. But crucially, he bounded that sorrow. He felt it, he acknowledged it, and then he let it go. And that allowed him to spend the rest of his day focusing on the joy of his visitors and his lessons, rather than letting self-pity consume his entire day.
Section 4. Love, Marriage, and Family. The supreme importance of connection. So when it came down to the absolute bedrock of human happiness, Maury laid out some incredibly clear, practical rules for a successful marriage. He noted that a lot of modern marriages fail simply due to a lack of commitment and, honestly, pure selfishness. So his rules are strict. First, you must respect the other person. Second, you must learn how to compromise. Third, you've got to talk openly about what goes on between you. And finally, you must have a common set of values, chief among them being a shared belief in the absolute importance of the marriage itself. To really drive this home, Maury frequently borrowed this incredibly striking quote from the poet W.H. Auden, "Love each other or perish." It's just so profound in its simplicity, isn't it? Maury openly noted that without the love and support of his family and friends, going through his disease would have been utterly unbearable. He taught that without love, we are quite literally just birds with broken wings. Choosing to love is pretty much the only rational act in an otherwise very confusing world. Section 5. Learning how to die. The ultimate lesson. So the crucial point is this ultimate realization Maury came to. The truth is, once you learn how to die, you learn how to live. Now, I know that sounds like a bit of a paradox, right? But Maury's thesis was that if we actually accept our mortality, if we truly deeply realize that we could die at literally any moment, it immediately strips away all those petty materialistic ambitions. We instantly stop caring about what kind of car we drive or trying to show off to our neighbors. Instead, we're forced to start focusing intensely on what truly matters today. And to explain this whole concept of existence to Mitch, Maury used this incredibly beautiful, comforting metaphor. Imagine a small wave crashing into the shore. That little wave might be absolutely terrified that it's about to hit the rocks and be completely destroyed. But the wave isn't just a wave, it's part of the entire ocean. Maury wanted us to realize our profound interconnectedness with the universe. When our individual wave crashes on the shore, our energy, our love, and our lessons don't just disappear. They simply return to the vast ocean of humanity. Because, as Maury promised Mitch, death ends a life, not a relationship. Towards the very end, Maury asked Mitch to come visit his gravesite and to keep talking to him. He told Mitch, "You talk, I'll listen." It's proof that the love you create while you're here, it absolutely stays behind. You live on in the hearts of everyone you've touched, everyone you've nurtured. So as we wrap up, I really want to leave you today with this final, genuinely provocative question, one that Maury challenged everyone to ask themselves daily. He said to listen to the little bird on your shoulder and ask, if today was your last day, are you being the person you want to be? Are you actually chasing the right things? Or are you just sleepwalking through it all? Take a moment today to really reevaluate your own life's curriculum. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. And just remember, it is never ever too late to change the course of your life.